Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. We start today on hadith number 79. Bab al-ghadabi fi al-maw'idati wa al-ta'limi idha ra'a ma yakrah. This chapter is titled Expressing Anger during one's talk or lecture because of something that is disliked. Okay. So here, عن أبي مسعود الأنصاري رضي الله تعالى عنه قال رجل يا رسول الله لا أكاد أدرك الصلاة مما يطول بنا فلان فما رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في موعظة أشد غضبا من يومئذ فقال أيها الناس إنكم منفرون. So here, a companion went to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, I stopped going to Salah. In another hadith, specifically Isha Salah, because the Imam was taking so long. Right? The Imam of that time was Mu'adh ibn Jabal, if I'm not mistaken. So a very noble senior companion. And he was very young at that time. You know, when Mu'adh radiallahu ta'ala died several years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, maybe a decade after, he was only 33. Right? He passed away at 33. Natural. I think it might have been due to the plague. Yeah, I think it was due to a plague that was going on at that time. He passed away. A lot of companions died during that plague. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. So you can imagine here, he's probably in his late teens, early 20s. So not very experienced in life, not very experienced socially. A young individual still does not understand the challenges that an older person has because they don't go through it, they don't feel it. So him and his zeal and his enthusiasm for Islam, Mu'adh would take a very long time during Isha prayer, like a very long time. And so this companion said, Ya Rasulullah, he's going to the Prophet and complaining. He said, Rasulullah, I don't go to the masjid anymore because Mu'adh is taking too long in Salah. I can't handle it, right? Either because physically his body cannot take it, or he has business to attend to, right? He can't spend that much time. Whatever the specific reason is, when the Prophet ﷺ was informed about this, the narrator of the hadith said, I've never seen the Prophet more upset. I've never seen him more upset. And then the Prophet gathered the people and he said the following, O people, innakum munaffirun. You are discouraging people. Your behaviors are discouraging people from coming. Right? And the way the Prophet ﷺ is wording this here, he's not specifying who is guilty here. So ayyuhan nas, like, oh people, he's talking to everyone. You all, like, this is how it literally translates as, you all are discouraging other people from coming to them. It's not everyone. It's a specific person. But the point here is what? It's to reform a behavior, to correct a behavior, not to shame someone. And in the culture of social media today, and I don't know how much you look at YouTube and you're familiar with, there's like a style of titling your videos. Like there's an art when it comes to titling videos to attract people to click on the video and watch. Right? So for example, if I were to title a video, how to perform wudu, how many people are going to be interested in clicking it? Very few people. Very few people. Versus if I were to title a video, the mistake everyone makes when performing wudu. Everyone's going to touch it now. I'm making a mistake. You see, this type of behavior, like this type of language, it riles people up. For what? For the sake of getting clicks. That's not the way the Prophet ﷺ did it. Right? It's not the way he did it. He did it in a way where it addresses the issue without embarrassing anyone, and it makes the benefit for everyone. So, okay, pay attention. You might not be the specific person who's guilty of this specific incident, but you know what? When the Prophet says, you all are doing things that are discouraging other people, it's like, okay, what am I doing? It creates self-reflection, right? It creates self-reflection. Okay, maybe it's not in Salah, but am I doing something that is discouraging other people from Islam? Yaqeen, you all familiar with Yaqeen, right? Yaqeen Institute. They did research on individuals who were born into a Muslim family but no longer identify as a Muslim. So Pew Research, a very prestigious research institution, they released data about the Muslim community. And they said in that data, they found that 23% of born Muslims in America no longer identify as Muslim. 23%. That's pretty big. It's almost 1 in 4. That's very big. Now, when parents hear this, they get all scared, right? It is scary. But that 23%, they're coming from families who are very distant from Islam anyway. Most of the time. But anyway, Yaqeen did research into the reasons as to why people, born Muslims, leave Islam. Right? And what do they find? What do you think the number one reason was? People thought it would be because of desires. People want to go and have fun. Right? Or they thought that there's atheism floating around, and in school they're teaching ideologies that go against Islam and it's discouraging people. They found that the percentage of Muslims who no longer identify as Muslim, because of those reasons, is very small. What was the number one reason?
Was it because of the cultural practice and the religious practice?
Close, right? It was due to the behaviors of other Muslims. Most people who leave Islam do it because they say, look how the Muslims are behaving. Right? And you find this a lot. A lot. Without going into details, I'm sure you all have examples in your mind of individuals who behave a certain way. Right? I mean, I've heard it with my own 2 ears. Look at what Uncle so-and-so did, how he used to treat his kids and the way he used to behave so that they go and pray. It's like, I don't want to be a part of this. Why should I take pride in that when this non-Muslim behaves in the utmost humane way, with good character? Like why are they going to hellfire and those people are going to paradise? Doesn't make any sense. Now, it's wrong. The way they see it is wrong, but it's still an issue. So the Prophet is saying, "Innakum munaffirun." You can do things that distance people from Islam. Right? And Sheikh Hassan has been working a lot on the God image. Right? Kids understand who Allah is based on their parents. Based on their parents. Right? Not to put all the pressure on you. Because a lot of times parents find themselves in an impossible situation. So it's not about, oh, you're the wrong one. It's just about understanding. Now, your kids are already grown up, but your grandkids are young, or you will have grandkids, right? So you can be that model for them. So it's still relevant to you. The idea here is our behaviors can cause other people to dislike Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points this out in the Quran. He says, وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ دَخَلًا بَيْنَكُمْ فَتَزِلَّ قَدَمٌ بَعْدَ ثُبُوتِهَا وَتَذُوقُوا السُّوءَ بِمَا صَدَدتُّمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. This is a very, very aggressive verse. It's very scary. It's a huge warning. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the companions, don't use Allah's name in a way to win people over, but it's a lie. Right? Certain religions do this a lot. Right? Let's just be kind of blunt here. You find a lot of Christians doing this. I called out to Allah, but I found Jesus. The story of the ex-Muslim. It's a lie. That person was never a Muslim. Nabil Quraishi or Qurashi. Right? The Christians always, Nabil, look at his story, See, the Muslim who left Islam, he was a Qadiani, he was never Muslim. They built an entire lie, right, to try and dissuade Muslims from Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the believers, don't you dare do that. Why? Because that leads other people to disliking Islam. Because that lie, sooner or later, will be revealed. They'll figure it out sooner or later. Now, what happens when somebody said, I entered Islam based on a lie? Based on a lie. What's going to happen then? They're probably going to leave. Not only will they leave, they'll become an enemy of Islam, a hater of Islam. Because of who? The Muslims. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse, He will punish such people, those Muslims, because they deterred people from the path of Allah. when you all first came to America, the stereotype of your generation, alaikum salam, the stereotype of your generation, when it comes to business transactions is what? Muslims are liars. You can't depend on them. They're always late, right? Now, when you have a non-Muslim or a Muslim dealing with such people, it's like this is how Muslims are, what ends up happening? Forget this Islam, right? Clearly, their salah, because they go and pray, their salah is meaningless because it's not doing anything for them. It's not making society a better place. So what's the point? Right? فَتَذُوقُ السُّوءَ بِمَا صَدَدْتُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. They will taste the punishment of Allah because they took people away from Islam. They deterred people from Islam. Here the Prophet ﷺ saying that. Imagine a Muslim doing something he or she thinks is pious. It's actually causing other people to become more distant from Islam. So it's sensitive stuff, right? Sensitive stuff. This is why knowledge is so important. This is why, one of the reasons why this hadith is in this unit on knowledge. Knowledge is meant to, what we said last time, one of the functions of knowledge, Islamic knowledge, is to make people's lives easier. To make people's lives more easier, right? Easier. To find solutions for people's problems. That's the function of knowledge, right? And don't let your lack of knowledge be a source of deterring people from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Prophet ﷺ says, فَمَنْ صَلَّى بِالنَّاسِ فَلْيُخَفِّفْ. If you lead people in prayer, then make it light on the people. فَإِنَّ فِيهُمْ الْمَرِيض وَالضَّعِيفُ وَذَا الْحَاجَةِ. Why? Why should you make it light for people? Because among the congregants are those who are ill, those who are weak, and those who have business to attend to, right? So it's not just, because someone might come and say, oh, you want me to make the khutbah shorter, or you want me to make salah shorter so you can go and make money? Oh, you hypocrite. You're after the world and you're making, the Prophet says people have business to attend to, right? So you have to accommodate for that. Now, what does it really mean to make it light? Well, one companion says that he went to attend Dhuhr prayer with the Prophet ﷺ. And then he remembered, when he got to the message, he remembered something he had to take care of then and there. So he said he left to go take care of the business, right? And he specified a certain place, and that place is known till today. So how long does it take to walk there and walk back? Around 15 minutes. So he went for about 15, 20 minutes, took care of his business, went back to Salah, and found that the Prophet was still in the first rak'ah. Right? Yet here, what is the Prophet ﷺ saying? Make Salah light for people. Okay, well, to us, our Dhuhr prayer, I time it, like I see. Our Dhuhr prayer is about 8 minutes. Every single time, 8 minutes. Aisha prayer is around 10 minutes. Fajr prayer is around 12 minutes. Right? Yet here, one rak'ah of Dhuhr prayer was 20 minutes. So was the Prophet not applying what he said? How do we understand this? Well, فَلْيُخَفِّفْ, make it light in terms of what's light for the people. What the companions can endure in terms of salah is very different than us. In Fajr prayer, they would read, Surah Hud in the first rak'ah and something similar in the second rak'ah. They'd read around 30 pages in Fajr prayer. Once Abu Bakr prayed Fajr until almost the sun came up. Right? The sun almost came up. Shuruq almost happened. Right? While Abu Bakr was praying Fajr. And after, Abu Bakr, the sun is almost out, what are you doing? And his answer was, if the sun rose while we were doing salah, it would have risen on a people who are not blind. Meaning their hearts are awake. That was light for them. What was Mu'adh doing? He was reading Surah Al-Baqarah in Aisha prayer, which is a lot more than 30 pages. That's 50 pages around, right? So what is light is in terms of the people. When I was in Jordan, Taraweeh there is for me, it was very unspiritual. Why? Because in each rak'ah, they would read around 2 or 3 verses. How much do we do in Taraweeh? Most masajid, in every rak'ah of Taraweeh, they read a page, which is about 2.5 minutes. Right? In Jordan, maximum a third of a page, maximum. And that would be, you're kind of pushing it. Their Taraweeh, from Isha to the end of Taraweeh, is about 30 minutes.
So they didn't do a khatam.
No, they don't do khatam.
That's what they do in Turkey.
I don't know what to do. Like, to them, that's what they're accustomed to. That's light to them. To us, it's like, what are you doing, right? To us, 1 page per rak'ah is light. It's acceptable. People can handle that. They're accustomed to it. So again, when the Prophet says, فَلْيُخَفِّفْ, make it light, it's in terms of what people see as light. And Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, when he was asked about Taraweeh, how long should Taraweeh be? He said, as long as the people want it to be. As long as the people want it to be. If they want it to be 5 pages per rak'ah, so be it. If they want it to be a half a page, a third of a page, so be it. There's no right or wrong answer here. Right? So, فَلْيُخَفِّفْ. Don't understand this as we'll make Isha prayer 3 minutes. That's not what's being said here. It is about being conscious of the people behind you and accommodating their realities in terms of how you conduct salah. Right? Let me give you another example, final one. When it comes to the timing of khutbah, when we have Jummah prayer. If you remember, a few years ago, we used to start Jummah prayer at 1:10. Then we changed it to 1:15. Why? Because people are coming from work. And they're coming during their lunch break, which is an hour. And so they make their lunch break from 1 to 2. 10 minutes is not enough time for them to come to work, from their work, find a parking spot, and make it before the khutbah starts. 15 minutes is more reasonable. Okay? This is the application of what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. Accommodate the people. Make it easy for people to perform religious duties. Right? And so in our planning of last Ramadan, the Ramadan team, we asked the question, what are the inconveniences people face when they come to this masjid? And we made a list. We said, okay, how can we resolve them? Right? One example is handicap parking. The last thing, if somebody's handicapped, and they don't have a spot right in front of the masjid, are they going to come? Absolutely not. So we dedicated the entire front parking lot to those who are handicapped. Another inconvenience is crossing the road over there. So we tried our best to have a volunteer there to press the button to make sure, because the city has been very difficult making more lighting, and it took us years just to get that crosswalk, right? So this is the application of the Prophet, what the Prophet is saying, فَلْيُخَفِّفْ, make it easy. The same thing comes when it comes to raising our kids to love Islam. They need to see, not that the religion is do whatever you want, easy, because a lot of people understand easy in terms of it has no substance. You just do whatever you want. Pray when it's convenient and don't pray when it's convenient. No, we're not talking about convenience here. We're talking about the ease of actually fulfilling it. Right? And so you can imagine a 7-year-old when the Prophet ﷺ tells us, start teaching your kids to pray when? At 7. Are your kids going to be able to pray the 5 daily prayers and the sunan? Probably not. So should we encourage them to do the sunnah there and then? Probably not. Let's just start with the 5 daily prayers. And once they get a hang of that, we start introducing the sunnah prayers. Right? This is how you make it easy, how you make it possible, plausible. Right? The next hadith, عن زيد بن خالد الجهني رضي الله تعالى عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سأله رجل عن اللقطة فقال اعرف وكاءها أو قال وعاءها وعفاصها ثم عرفها سنة ثم استمتع بها فإن جاء ربها فأديها إليه قال فضالة الإبل فغضب حتى احمرت وجنتاه أو قال احمر وجهه فقال ما لك ولها معها سقاؤها وحذاؤها ترد الماء وترعى الشجر فذرها حتى يلقاها ربها قال فضالة الغنم قال لك أو لأخيك أو للذئب. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was asked about luqata. Luqata is something of monetary value that is lost. You find it. So you're walking and you find a $100 bill lying on the floor, just sitting there. That's luqata, right? What do you do with that? Or you find a purse. How do you engage that? So to go into a little bit of fiqh here, because this is a real life scenario, I'm sure you've all come across a little bit of money somebody has dropped. Do I take it? Do I not take it? What do I do? So there's fiqh behind this. Number one, we ask the question, what is the value of what you found? Why is this important? Because if what you found is small in value to where the one who lost it is not going to come back looking for it. You found a dollar bill. You found a $10, a $20 bill. What's the likelihood that the person who lost that is going to come back looking for it? Probably not, right? Especially if you find it lying somewhere on the sidewalk. It's very unlikely they're going to come back looking for it. Versus if you find the latest Apple Watch, which is $400, $300. You find it lying in the wudu area, which happens a lot. Right? Is somebody going to come back looking for that? Yeah. Of course they are. It's highly unlikely that they're not going to come back looking for it. They're definitely going to come back looking for it. Plus, you can open it and you can find who it is. Right? You press the button. One person showed you press the button and say, "Who am I?" It says who it is. We've done that a lot for people's phones when they lose their phones. Yeah, right. You say, "Hey Siri, who am I?" And so, "Oh, you're so and so," and we know who it is. We find the person. We give them back their phone or their watch. Right. So, why am I bringing this up? Because if what you found is not going to be looked for, you go ahead and keep it. It's yours, there and then. But if what you found is going to be looked for, then the Prophet ﷺ tells us what to do. Inform whoever is responsible that you have found something. Right? So you find an Apple Watch in the whatever. You go and you tell the secretary, "I found an Apple Watch. If somebody looks for it, I have it." Or you say, "I found a watch." Or you just give it to the secretary and they'll say, maybe they'll write a community message. If somebody lost a watch, right, reach out to us. But when they make the announcement, they keep it vague. They say, "We found a watch," but they won't describe the watch. Why? So that people don't steal it. Because the one who lost it will be able to describe it exactly as it is. But someone who's trying to steal it will not be able to do that. So the Prophet ﷺ says, announce that something has been found, and then when a person comes to claim it, they have to describe it. If they describe it as is, you give it to them. Right? But if nobody comes after a year's time, it's yours. Right? It's yours. So back in the day, they used to use a newspaper for this. If somebody lost a purse, they put it in a newspaper. Back in the day, they put it in a newspaper. And maybe there might even be websites these days where if you lose something, you go there and see if somebody found it. Right? So you just go and you say, I found a purse. Again, very vague. They'll reach out to you and they have to describe it. And they'll say in the purse there's $1,000. There's some valuables there. Right? You preserve it for an entire year, and if nobody claims it within that year, it's yours. Okay, what about if after a year, somebody comes and claims it, and it turns out it's theirs? What do you do then? Well, I already used it. I thought it was mine. The Prophet says you have to give it back to them. So if you use that $1,000, you have to give them back $1,000. Now, of course, there are some things like you found their driver's license there. You know who the person is, right? You know who the person is. You can reach out to them. You can find a way. You can go to the police department and say, "I find this. Can you?" Right? If you find a purse but there are credit cards in it, right? Can you use the credit card? Obviously not, right? Etc. All right. Now, this companion who's asking, then said, Ya Rasulullah, or somebody asked the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, what about a lost camel? Back in the day, you'd find animals that are lost. What about if I find a lost camel? Can I take it? When the man asked this question, the Prophet ﷺ got very upset. Remember, the point of this chapter is what? Expressing one's discontent or they're upset in their teaching. Right? So sometimes in the khutbah, the sheikh gets mad, and whatnot. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked this, he got very upset. Why did he get very upset? Because the Arabs know camels. They know camels. They know how camels are. They know that if a camel strays away from its herd, it's going to come back. And a camel is very big. A wolf can't hunt it. It's going to be just fine alone. And a camel can survive a long period of time by itself, without water, it's not going to die. It'll be just fine. So it will automatically go back to its owner, or the owner will find it eventually. So you have no right to take it. Now, why didn't the Prophet just inform him? Because they know. They know how camels are. So the person who's asking, you know better. Why are you asking this? Except that you want to cause problems or you want to take advantage of something. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ got upset. And then either the same person or someone else asked, what about a lost sheep? A sheep that's lost. Again, a very practical question. It happened back in the day. Now, if it's the same person who asked about the camel, we would say that this person's trying to, what's the wording in English? They're trying to fix their mistake, right? They're trying to fix their mistake. But if it's someone else asking, just a question that came to mind. The Prophet ﷺ responded, as for the sheep that's lost, well, you have one of three scenarios. Either you take it, or someone else is going to take it, or the wolf is going to eat it. One of the three. So, what is the Prophet alluding to?
It's better you take it.
Yeah, well, you might as well take it. Because if you don't take it, someone else will take it, or a wolf will eat it. Well, the worst case scenario is a wolf eats it. That's lost money now. It's gone, right? No one benefited there. Right? And if you find money, then you know what? It's yours. Anta awla bihi. You have more right over it. I get this question sometimes about inheritance. You know how when a father passes away, leaves behind some money, the brothers start coming in, say, we have such big responsibilities. You're okay. You're doing fine. Your husband will take care of you. Don't take your portion. Give us your portion. It happens a lot. And this sister and the purity of her heart feels bad. It's okay, maybe I should do this for my family and whatnot. My response to that is, Allah gave you that money. No one has more right over that money than you. And Allah even says, even if you are very wealthy, it's still yours. After taking it, if you want to give them, there's reward in that. And so I tell people, especially ladies, right, whether that's marriage and their dowry, sometimes the father says, give me your dowry and whatnot, or the husband says, give me back the dowry, I need it, and all this. If Allah has given you money, has made a certain amount of money your right, take it and then do what you want with it, right? But take it first.
So you can't just say, I don't need it. You have to take it and then...
You could say you don't need it. You could say you don't want it. But if Allah, it's a principle here. It's a mindset. Allah has sent this to you. Rizqun saqahu Allahu ilayk. Money Allah has given to you. He sent it to you. It's meant to be for you. You have most priority over it. Take it and then do what you want with it. But so many people, they'll just say, it's okay, leave it for someone else. No, you're walking by, you find $100. You, the one who found it, you take it, even if you don't need it. See it as this is something Allah has sent you. So take it. Don't say, oh, maybe someone else will come who needs it more. That probably will come on your mind as a Muslim. Alhamdulillah, I'm well-to-do. Here's $100. Let someone else come. Well, maybe the next person who comes is a drug addict or some murderer or some person who's going to use it in a bad way. Take the money, and if you want that money to be for a poor person, go and donate it. Right? So what's the point here? It's the mindset. How do you view this? If something was sent to you, that is something Allah has sent to you. Of course, assuming it's halal. Assuming it's halal. If it's not halal, we're not going to say, oh, Allah sent it to me. Right? And then do what you want with it. You want to give it to your siblings, you want to help them out, so be it. You want to give it to your husband, fine, afterwards. Take it first, and then do it. Right? But don't be naive. Right? Don't put yourself in a vulnerable position. Keep yourself in a position where you have options, because that gives you strength. And this isn't about putting someone else down. It's not about taking advantage of other people. But you have to keep yourself in a protected position. And you do that when you give yourself options. And you have more options when you have more money. Right? And then do what you want with it. Next hadith, عن أبي موسى رضي الله تعالى عنه قال سئل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن أشياء كرهها فلما أكثر عليه غضب ثم قال سلوني عما شئتم قال رجل من أبي قال أبوك حذافة فقام آخر فقال من أبي يا رسول الله قال أبوك سالم مولى شيبة فلما رأى عمر ما في وجهه قال يا رسول الله إنا نتوب إلى الله عز وجل. So here, the Prophet ﷺ was sitting and people kept asking him questions. They kept question after question after question. And the more questions that came to him, the more irritated the Prophet ﷺ became. This is the Prophet of patience, the Prophet of forbearance, this is the Prophet of, convening people, right? Why is he getting irritated by people's questions? One of his roles as a prophet is to attend to the affairs of people, such as answering their questions. The reason why the Prophet ﷺ was irritated is that the more you ask questions, then the more you dive into details that makes life more complicated. Right? Makes things more complicated. Right? There's an infinite amount of questions you can ask. Honestly, let's just look at, going to a department store. You want to buy clothes. You go to the department store and you ask the question, okay, I need to make sure that what I'm buying is halal. So you ask the question, okay, the money that I have, did I get it from halal? Well, what if the people who paid me that money, they got it from haram? Well, what if the people that gave him that or her that money, they're the ones who got, it's endless. Or, what about if this company supports genocide, supports Israel, right? Or what about, to what extent are we demanded to ask questions before we determine something's halal? Because there's no shortage of questions, none whatsoever. And you find that people who are less experienced in Islamic knowledge overcomplicate issues. And those who are more experienced give answers to questions that seems like they're oversimplifying it. I used to notice this with one of my teachers. Would ask questions. He'd be asked questions. And the answers that he would give seemed overly simplistic. Almost like one-word responses. Halal, like is it really that easy? What about this? What about that? What about it? And so when we were younger, we used to say, he's not taking this seriously. Or he's one of those, everything's halal sheikh. But as you yourself learn more, and as you get more experience, and as you start to incorporate the goals of Islam, the principles of Islam, into the way you come to rulings, you'll find that this religion is meant to be simple. Right? And again, I've already mentioned this to you all. People will look at the back end of companies before determining if the contract is halal. What companies do behind the scenes that has nothing to do with your contract with that company to determine whether your contract with them is halal or not. To me personally, this is overcomplication of the issue. This is tanattu'. This is going beyond what the religion is asking you. You are responsible for the terms of the contract you are entering in and you are signing. Not what the other party is going to do in the background. If we open up this door, everything becomes haram. Everything. And Abu Hanifa noticed this. Right? He noticed this early on. And so he is the one who laid down the principle. You are responsible for the contract between you and that person. Where they got that money, what they're going to use the money for, how they're going to use the money, what the person you're selling to is going to use it for, is none of your business. Right? You know, like for example, without examples. So you see what I mean here? The Prophet ﷺ was irritated. Why? Because they kept asking questions that is overcomplicating the religion. Had it been part of the religion, as Allah says, He would have informed you about it. If Allah wants you to do something, He will tell you. So if He didn't tell you, don't ask about it. As Allah says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَسْأَلُوا عَنْ أَشْيَاءٍ إِن تُبْدَ لَكُمْ تَسُؤْكُمْ. Don't ask about things that if it were to be revealed to you, it'd make your lives more difficult. Right? So just wait for the Quran to come, and it will be made clear to you. So the Prophet ﷺ became increasingly irritated, and then he said, ask me whatever you want. Ask me whatever you want. And so one person said, Ya Rasulullah, who's my father? Who's my biological father? Back in the day, before Islam, they used to do things. So who's my father? So the Prophet said, your father is Hudhafa. Another person said, Ya Rasulullah, who's my father? And he said, your father is Salim, Mawla Shayba. Right? And it said that one of these two, the father that raised them was their biological father. The other one, the father that raised them was not their biological father. So, what did you benefit from knowing now? You were perfectly comfortable before in your relationship with the person who has been raising you and taking care of you. Right? What have you gained from knowing this? So there are questions, if you ask, it brings you no benefit. And for the ladies, especially ladies who have an extra amount of jealousy, and they want to look into everything their husband is doing. They look at his phone, his message logs, everything. Where are you going? Where are you coming from? Why were you late? It's coming from jealousy. But the more questions they ask, what is bound to happen sooner or later? It doesn't have to be something big. Sooner or later, he's going to do something she doesn't like. And instead of, Allah concealing things so that life can continue, now you have to deal with this reality. Right? So don't pursue things, don't ask questions that don't need to be asked. Don't. And also part of this is don't ask questions that's none of your business. As the Prophet ﷺ says, "Min husn Islam al-mar tarkuhu ma la ya'ni." It is part of good piety to not ask about things, to not get information about things that's none of your business. In America, they always have that phrase, "It's none of your business." That's an Islamic concept. Why do you need to know what your neighbor is doing behind closed doors? It's none of your business. Right? Even your siblings, it's none of your business. People's wondering, what's this? What? I'm doing it for good reasons, and it's none of your business. Asking questions is an art. It's a skill. And even the pursuit of knowledge, a good question will bring you a lot of knowledge. And a weak question will not get you anything. And the wrong question will bring you problems. Right? So I'm not saying you don't ask any questions. So be careful here. But when you ask questions, ask yourself the question, does this need to be asked? What's the purpose behind asking this question? If you're asking about a question on wudu, why are you asking that question? To make sure you're performing an obligation correctly, right? That needs to be asked. Right? But if your answer is, I don't really need to know this, then why ask? If the answer is, it's not going to benefit my relationship to Allah in any way, then why ask? Right? And one final example. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu once was walking, and a young man was with him. And you probably heard this story before. They went to make wudu. And so there was this, there was a vessel or some jar or whatever with water in it. So they went to make wudu. While they were making wudu, the house that was next to this vessel of water, the owner was cleaning the roof. You know how in our ethnic countries you clean the floor with water and you have the squeegee, right? So as he was cleaning, some of the water fell into the vessel they were making wudu in. Right? So the young man, he called the person and said, "Hey, owner of the home, tell us, was there any impurities in the water that you were, using?" And Umar responded and said, "Oh, owner of the home, don't inform us, don't tell us." Why?
Because if you know, then you will be
No, I mean, isn't it a valid question per se? If there's impurities in that water, you can't make wudu from that water. They're not making wudu from an ocean. They're making it from a small body of water, very small. So if impurities come into it, you can't use that water for wudu. So technically it's a valid question. So why did Umar say, "Don't tell us"? Because the Sharia tells us how to approach such a scenario. Look at the water. Did it change color? Did the taste change? Did the smell change? Meaning use your physical senses to detect a tangible change in the water. If you detect it, don't use it. If you don't detect it, don't ask. Don't ask. You see what I mean here? Right? It's like when you go and you eat food. You go to a seafood place that's non-Muslim owned. Well, what if there was bacon on the frying pan that they fried this, fish on? What if the oil that they used, they had pork in it? And it's an endless amount. If you look at it, does it taste like pork? Does it smell like it? Does it look like it? No, eat it. You're fine. Right? So this is another example of how do you ask questions. If you ask the wrong questions, you ask too many questions, you ask questions that don't need to be asked, you can end up doing more harm to your iman, making life more difficult than it needs to be. Right? And then Umar radiallahu ta'ala, when he noticed the Prophet getting increasingly upset and irritated, he said, "Ya Rasulullah, we repent to Allah." Pretty much he silenced the people. He says, "Stop. This isn't going to end well." Radiallahu ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala alam. We'll go ahead and stop here at hadith number 82. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.